I mean, he fast, he's big.
Fast, big, run good routes, catch, run after the catch. He do it all. When Julio healthy, he a dog. He a dog for sure.
So Jalen Ramsey, just to recap, says DeAndre Hopkins, OBJ, and Julio, the three most difficult receivers for him to cover. Mina, we'll get to the snubs in a little bit, but are you surprised that Beckham is still on that list? Even though he qualified, it's when he's healthy.
Yeah, Laura, I'm not surprised, but I can see how it would come out of the blue for some people, because at this point I actually think Odell isn't thought of as being in that elite group. He's kind of being slept on at the moment after having all of those injuries. And the reason why Jalen included him is because when Odell was healthy, he was consistently a nightmare for cornerbacks. And it wasn't just one season. I mean, we're talking about a guy who set the NFL record for the most catches ever through a player's first 50 games. He was good in a way that I think suggests he can return to form regardless of coming back from an injury. His route running, which Jalen alluded to, his awareness of leverage, body positioning, and then, of course, the hands. He was the total package. And it's just not size. He's not even a bigger dude, or just speed. He was a true number one wide receiver, and I think he does belong in that conversation. I look forward to him sort of reasserting his place there.
Like just listening to Jalen Ramsey, the reason that it makes sense, he used the word twitchy. And I think that's important when you're talking about a taller cornerback. Odell Beckham Jr. is a very twitchy guy, and twitchy wide receivers usually give taller cornerbacks problems. So when Odell Beckham Jr. is right, there's not many guys that can do the things that Odell Beckham Jr. is capable of doing. And I know me personally, I'm looking forward to Odell going out there this year and kind of, reestablishing himself as one of the elite wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, I covered him when he was a rookie with the Giants. I mean, the stuff we just saw him do in practice was so ridiculous. Like, he would go to practice, like, excited to watch whatever he was going to do that day. And I remember Darren Woodson, when he used to work for us, he told me once he was at the Pro Bowl and Odell was playing, and he said that the old saying when you're a defensive back is, watch the hips, because the eyes lie, the hips don't lie. He said he had guys coming back to the sideline that were trying to cover Odell saying, the hips lie. Like, his hips actually do lie. The way he moves, they couldn't keep up with it. So, yeah, I think it would be pretty cool for the game if he got back to close to what he was.
I just want to make note that we started the show with David Bakhtiari chugging beer, and now we've gotten a Shakira reference in the show, so that means we're really off to a great start here today. One thing I wonder, Mina, is if OBJ will maintain that twitchiness despite dealing with the injuries. You would think that he would. All reports coming out of Browns camp are that he is even better than before. But there's somebody, or maybe a couple of guys, that were left off of Jalen Ramsey's list of toughest to cover. Anybody stick out to you from the wide receiver standpoint?
Well, a guy who comes to mind is a guy who scored on Jalen Ramsey, or at least that Rams defense, in the playoffs, and that's Davante Adams, who I believe is the best wide receiver in the NFL right now. In the same way that I believe Jalen Ramsey is the best cornerback in the NFL. And the word, if twitchiness is the word we're going to use to explain Odell Beckham Jr.'s excellence, the word for Davante Adams is release. I mean, you're seeing it, well, not so much there, but he has this little bunny hop thing he does at the line that is just devastating for DBs. It's impossible to sort of anticipate where he's going to go, and it's a big part of the reason why he was so special last season with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Graz, I feel like Davante Adams doesn't get enough respect. And maybe that's just my own opinion, but you talk to all these guys in the league. Are corners talking about Davante Adams that way?
Yeah, again, unscientific. But when I talk to cornerbacks and ask them that question, who's the toughest guy you cover, I get the answer Davante Adams a lot. He is a popular answer among cornerbacks currently playing in the NFL, and they use that word release. They say his releases are so tough. I think I asked a couple of his coaches about it once. They said it comes from guys that have basketball backgrounds are a little bit like that sometimes. But the corners do not enjoy that because it's he can beat you right away, almost right before the play starts. And I think that's something they find difficult to deal with.
Yeah, that may not be exactly scientific, but this is. Devontae Adams has 58 touchdown catches in the last 5 seasons. That's 11 more than the next closest player, which is Tyreek Hill. Let's talk about the Seahawks. They have to deal with Jalen Ramsey twice a year, and recently Bobby Wagner talked about the Russell Wilson drama earlier this offseason. He said, I think honestly, it's part of how the league works. If you lose and don't go to the big game, they always try to figure out what went wrong, what happened. Bobby Wagner went on to say, I definitely feel like it was a little overblown, but it's all water under the bridge now. So the reality is, D. Wood, and you've been in these locker rooms, they're all going to have to get back in the locker room together, and they're all going to have to look at each other in the eye as men. You think the drama is actually over in Seattle?
No, I just think it's on pause right now, and I think for a couple reasons. One, you got to look within the division. You're talking about the NFC West. That's the toughest division in football. We're talking about the Los Angeles Rams, who are, with Matthew Stafford on board, is probably a Super Bowl contender. The San Francisco 49ers getting all those injured guys back. They're going to be another team that's going to be a Super Bowl contender. And Arizona Cardinals has gotten better as well. So I think that's one aspect. But another aspect is they got a new play caller, Shane Waldron. First-time play caller. Russ wants to cook, okay? Russ wants to cook. We don't know how he's going to call games. I got questions about the Seattle Seahawks offensive line. If Russ is not able to cook this year, guess what? We're going to be revisiting this conversation again next offseason.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a great point about Shane Waldron because, despite being tied to Sean McVay, as is, of course, the blessing that seems to follow coaches throughout the NFL, he didn't call plays in Los Angeles. And we can assume that the offense is going to have some resemblance to the McVay Shanahan offense, and which is not what Seattle has historically done. A little bit more play action, perhaps integration of the run and pass game, but we won't know until we see it. I do know that Russell Wilson has articulated in the past that he would like his offense to have some more similarity to those offenses that he saw within the same division. And I imagine that Waldron coming on was a decision made in part to satisfy that desire on part of the quarterback, who is going to be in Seattle at least for one more season.
Right, at least one more, Mina. I agree with Damian Woody's take that this comes up again next offseason, but my understanding is that Russell Wilson's happy with the extent to which the front office involved him in some decisions, including Shane Waldron, and kept him abreast of what they were doing this offseason. So I think for now it's legitimately put to bed, even if it's only napping.
Well, it probably is taking a small nap, and the reality is these players are going to continue to want to take control of their futures, and I think that storyline isn't going anywhere. Let's get to some more news. Falcons linebacker Barkevious Mingo was released from the team on Saturday following an arrest on Thursday for a second-degree felony charge of indecency with a child, sexual conduct. Mingo was released on $25,000 bond Friday. An arrest warrant obtained by ESPN details the accusation by a then 13-year-old boy who says Mingo pulled at his underwear and touched him inappropriately in July 2019. The boy says he and a friend were staying at a hotel with Mingo after a trip to an amusement park. Mingo's attorney, Chris Lewis, says the Falcons rushed to judgment in terminating the linebacker's contract before gathering all the facts of his case, and said in a statement given to Adam Schefter that the accusation against Mr. Mingo is a lie. Barkevious knows it, and so does his accuser. More coming your way on NFL Live next. And after being on the losing end of Super Bowl 55, find out which Chiefs star felt embarrassed after the loss and if our guy